Hi, this is John from Forage London, now called Forage London and Beyond, to encompass the fact that I'm doing a lot more things out of the city, as well as still running lots of London and other city-based events. I'm doing lots of coastal foraging down in Dorset and lots of stuff in the woods in Hampshire. It's mid-May, doesn't look like it, the weather looks a bit gloomy today, it's a little bit windy, but surprise, surprise, I'm in the park. I'm making this film as an apology to anybody who had to suffer the last two blogs that I wrote, which were pretty self-indulgent and only vaguely on the theme of foraging. I rambled and I wandered and I spewed a lot of my opinions onto the page, loosely under the guise of being connected to foraging. So this is getting right back to the point, and if you like, it's to make up for it. So what we're going to do, I haven't really got a plan, but what I thought we'd do is we'd walk around and I'll try and identify 20 wild plants, or not so wild plants, but certainly edible plants within 20 minutes. We'll see if we can do some clear ID on them and work out how they can be used and look at their features. My only problem that I can foresee is me being able to just talk for 1 minute about something. With stinging nettles, I could probably talk for about an hour just about the one plant. So we will see what we come across, and I'm going to turn the camera around, we're going to have a look at the clock, and it's going to be a bit like, let's call it ready, steady, forage. Okay, as they say in TV, let's go. Right, so the clock says 1 minute 50, so we'll give me 10 seconds to find something and then we'll start having a look at it. It's a very nice park, it's got some lovely little wild rural kind of patches here, and right, here's our first plant that we're going to look at. So this is garlic mustard. This is cabbage doing an impression of garlic, certainly in the way that it tastes. So if we can have a look at the flowers, as you can see, 4 petals arranged in a cross on each one, and this is a characteristic of all members of the cabbage family. They're almost always white petals or yellow petals. 4 petals arranged in a cross, hence the old name for the family, the crucifers. This is a biennial. It's got an edible root on it, so it's a little bit like horseradish. It's down the fiery end. It's got these lovely big spade-shaped leaves on the upper part of the plant. You can see those with a beautiful serrated edge around them. So the flowers are a very important characteristic, but the most important characteristic on this plant is you get a bit, you crush it up, give it a sniff, and it stinks. It smells of garlic, it smells of mustardy garlic kind of flavour to it, and that is the thing that has to be your guide with this plant. We just look down the base, the leaves are much bigger and much more rounded off. Right now, at this time of year, it's in flower. If it's got those 4 petals, it's got those smelly leaves, and it's got these seed heads growing up the stem like that, you're in the right place. Without that smell, you're most definitely not. So that took 1.5 minutes. So we're going to have to hurry up if we're going to do this. Stinging nettles. Okay, it's a bit of a cheap trick to show how to identify stinging nettles, seeing as most people can identify a stinging nettle. But they do have such a lot of uses. The way I like to pick stinging nettles is like this. With my fingers, I like to hold the plant and find a point at which it naturally snaps off and it pops up there. So you've got nice soft flesh and you've got the woody bit left behind. So that's good for so many different recipes, soups and stews and omelettes, and anywhere there you use a spinach and nettle beer, and just countless different recipes that you can make with nettles. Okay, so let's have a little look over here. We have got some cleavers. This is in the bedstraw family, otherwise known as sticky weed or sticky willy or goosegrass. All members of this plant family have got a square stem. You can feel it by rolling it through your fingers, and also they have the leaves arranged around the stem in this wheel called a wall, and that's the characteristics of the bedstraw family. and these have got lots of little hooks all over them, so you can take the tips of them and you can steam them, and those little hooks will dissolve and use it as a sort of pot herb, a cooked vegetable. But generally speaking, I would favour other members of this group, especially sweet woodruff, which is lovely and it's got a beautiful vanilla marzipan kind of flavour to it. Over here is a great big patch of a plant in the geranium family. This is Herb Robert. It's got a flower with 5 petals, and it's got these beautifully lobed leaves. Beautiful foliage it's got on it. And it's also, another name for this plant family is the cranesbill family. So I don't know if my phone will do justice to this. As you can see, those heads there on the top of these stems, before the flowers open, they're looking like a pointy bill, hence cranesbill. This is more of a medicinal plant than it is an edible plant, but it's something you could certainly blend into smoothies and things like that if you were using it, because it's got numerous medicinal properties. It's a very good immune booster amongst other things, so something to be aware of. So right, that's 3 plants, and how are we doing? Right, we're having a little walk in the woods now. This is a common lime tree. Lovely. As I'm sure everybody knows from their extensive knowledge of Latin, cordate means heart-shaped. This tree is called Tilia cordata, and it's got these beautiful heart-shaped leaves on it, and they're full of mucilage, so that's the stuff you get in okra. They're quite slimy, but they do make a really nice salad plant when they're at this stage, when they're still translucent, so you can see, as you can see here, you can see your fingers through them. Apart from the leaves, an easy way to identify this tree is that it has these little shoots sticking out of it, so it'll be producing lots of new growth as the season goes on, even when the rest of the leaves have got a bit too robust to use. Sometimes you can see this tree with loads of these shoots, and it means it's got leaves all over it, so instead of it having a visible trunk, it looks like it's sort of wearing a comedy leaf suit. And it's got edible buds, it's got edible flowers. When the flowers on this come out, and you'll find this tree in every London park, when the flowers on this come out, they are absolutely delicious. They tend to come out as the elder flowers go over, and you can use them for making syrups and sauces and just eating them. They taste a bit like a sort of honeydew melon kind of thing going on with them. And also I've made champagne with them and all sorts of other things. It's a really wonderful crop to have. So what have we got down here? We've got a bit of water. Let's see, we have got some yellow flag iris that we're not going to look at the moment. I wonder how many plants we've done in the time. I'm going to have to pick my speed up a little bit. Let's walk down here and look at this oak tree. So these leaves, when they're at this stage, they're very soft, they're very pale, and they've got very little tannin in them. And what I like to do with oak leaves at this stage is I like to fry them and make crisps out of them with a little bit of paprika and a bit of salt. I don't think I really need to particularly go into ID of an oak leaf. These ones are particularly big, but they're a lobed, wavy leaf. I think most people watching this would be able to identify an oak tree, and if you can't, go and get a good tree guidebook. Let's see what else we can find along here. This is Guelder rose, otherwise known as crampbark. It's more a medicinal plant. It's got quite distinctive shape to the leaves, as you can see, and it flowers with these big sprays, which I suppose could vaguely be confused with elderflower if people were being sloppy. It's more of a medicinal plant than it is anything else, so we'll not go into a lot of detail with it at the moment. Let's go and look down here. For some reason, 9 minutes. Okay, so Here we have got yellow flag iris in the water. The reason to look at yellow flag iris is not because I consider it to be an edible plant at all, but because you want to avoid it. Rather than looking at the flower, which is almost like an advert for what it is, look at the top of the leaf, which comes to a really distinct point, and looking down on it, I don't know if you can see or not, the whole thing is very, very narrow, like it's been squashed. Then if we come over here, we've got some bulrush. You can see the tops of last year's bulrushes there. Now, bulrush is an excellent edible plant. It's got numerous uses for the upper and the lower parts of the plant, and it grows in exactly the same places. The top of the bulrush leaf, I want to try and show you this, but without falling in the water, so it might not be possible. No, it's not, and the wind's not going to let me. But basically, I've just shown you the top of the yellow flag iris. It's very pointy. The top of the bulrush leaf rounds off, so rather than it having a pointy top, it's got a rounded top, and rather than it having a flat stem which is sharp from one side to the other, it's got a rounded stem. So if you think about the bulrush as being a rounded stem and a rounded top of the leaf, and the yellow flag iris as having a pointy top and a pointy shape to the whole plant, then there's a beautiful little robin sitting on the branch there. I'm sure you can do zoom on this. Oh, he's gone. Anyway, so that is very, very quickly how to identify the difference between bulrush and often called reed mace as well, and yellow flag iris. Okay, so where am I and where am I going? I'm sure there's lots more to look at. We'll try and get to somewhere a bit busier. If obviously this ever were to be a TV programme, we would hope that there would be a better theme tune than me doing some tacky humming in the middle of it. I must apologise for the production values, well, actual utter lack of any production, but this is how I think, and this is the sort of things that I do. Just down here, good to look at, we'll look at some elder at some point as well. This is dogwood. The reason I point this out, if you look at the leaf, it looks nothing like the leaf of elder, which I'll show you later. Elder's very, very useful in all sorts of ways, and although the dogwood's not particularly poisonous, it's certainly not something you want to be using to make cordials and syrups and sauces and things like that. They both flower with a big white spray of flowers, so that's the reason I'm drawing attention to it, not because the leaf's similar at all. So let's have a look over here. I've totally lost count. I don't know whether I'm on track or not. I might have to do some really rapid kind of like, that's that, and that's that. Ah, wild garlic. Okay, redeeming all things. Here's a patch of wild garlic. This is a member of the allium group, and the patterns of this plant family are 6s and 3s. Now what I mean by that is that, for example, if you look at the petals, it's got 6 white petals, and that's a very important characteristic. But far more important than that is the fact that it stinks of garlic, absolutely reeks of the stuff. And the leaf shape, this is quite an extreme example later on in the season, but the leaf shape is like a spear. It joins the stem and it comes to a point. If it doesn't join the stem but comes off in 2 lobes either side, it is not wild garlic. If it doesn't stink to high heaven of garlic, it's not wild garlic. If it doesn't have 6 little white petals, it's not wild garlic. If it's not growing in the area that wild garlic grows, which is often shady places, woodlands, hedgerows, things like that, it's not wild garlic. If it's not in flower at this time of year, it's not wild garlic. There's numerous different ways to poison yourself by wishful foraging, if you prefer. So if you can identify this stuff, then you have a wonderful, wonderful plant you can use in a whole host of different ways. It's very important to not put anything else in your bag, and to be careful when you're collecting it, because a lot of the plants that are poisonous that grow with this plant grow literally intermingled. Down here we have got some wood avens. And if you look at this leaf here, it's a bit reminiscent of a strawberry leaf, and that's because it's also in the rose family, so it's related. Now this certainly isn't a salad plant, it's too hairy, it's not particularly pleasant, but what it does have is a delicious, I'm not going to uproot it, can't go around doing that here, but it's got a delicious root on it that tastes just like cloves, hence one of its other names, clove root. So if you become familiar with this, like a strawberry leaf but more rounded off, and then the upper leaves become quite pointy and separate, and then it will flower with a little yellow flower on it with 5 pointy petals, really similar to the flower that you'd get on a strawberry, and that's wood avens or clove root, and you can dig that up and use that exactly the same way as you would as cloves. Let's have a look at what else we have got. Over here we've got a big patch of Solomon seal. We'll look at it really briefly. We're not going to go into detail of this because it's got quite a lot of poisonous lookalikes, but here's some Solomon seal growing here. It's got edible roots, and it's got edible-ish leaves. I'm not going to do any more detail on that at the moment. What we have got growing down here though, which is very worth looking at, is some sorrel. Sorrel's a member of the dock family, and I'll just pull one of these off and see if I can tease the points of the leaf apart. Now, can you see? Will this camera decide to focus? The leaf tip here is very pointy. I'm quite ashamed of the production values of this film. I spent 20 years as a commercial photographer, and here I am making a film on my phone that's almost always out of focus. Anyway, I hope you can see these leaf tips here split into two, and they look like they're cut with scissors. They absolutely do not round off at all. They're really sharp, really pointy. If they rounded off at all, it could be something like Lords and Ladies, Aramaculatum, which also grows mixed in amongst the wild garlic. And if you bite any of that, it will inject thousands of little calcium oxalate crystals into your tongue, and it'd be extremely painful. Sorrel grows, here's a better way to see that leaf tip. You can see there, really sharp. Sorrel grows in grassland. If you just let the grass grow, then you'll get loads and loads and loads of sorrel, and it's a lovely crispy, citrusy, lemony plant, and you can put it with fish, and you can make cocktails with it, and you make sorrel pudding. You can do a whole myriad of different things with it. Anyway, the clock's ticking, let's move along. I've just seen some pignut, which is a wonderful little edible plant with a tuber, but it's a member of the carrot family, so it's got a white umbilifer top on it, like a white top on it, like lots of the other members of the carrot family, which basically means there's a lot of poisonous things to confuse it with, so we're not going to look at that. 17 minutes and counting. I wonder if anybody's still with me in this rambling foraging chunter-a-thon. Let's go down here. Lots of lovely bluebells been planted in this park. They look like they're native, but they're not likely to be native bluebells. They're going to be a hybridized version, or a hybridized version. We've got all sorts of different types of bluebells now, some that look like our native ones, others that look like the Spanish ones, and they're all breeding and interbreeding and forming all sorts of new versions. What have we got down here to look at? Oh, isn't that stunning? As far as I'm concerned, no edible use whatsoever, but I think the name for this is a handkerchief tree, and a well-deserved name too. Isn't it magnificent? God, I've turned into such a hippie, standing in a park making a film of a tree, declaring its magnificence. It is pretty cool though. Okay, edible things. A big piece of open land over there, nothing particularly interesting. Lots of beautiful shrubs and bushes that I can't identify because I've never given up any of my brain space or time to looking into them, or there being far too many other things that I'm more interested in. I suppose this small silence here is like if this was a proper film, it would be like a continuity gap. And they just edit it out. In fact, they probably edit out most of what I've said, wouldn't they? Okay, Darwin's Barberry. You see that there? Planted as a hedge all over the place, all over London, any kind of municipal area. They love planting this as a hedge. And it's getting to the end of its flowering time. It's got these amazing little sharp little holly-like leaves on it with little points all over it. It's related to Mahonia, which is also planted in parks an awful lot, but most importantly at the moment it's got these flowers, these lovely little orangey yellow. Let's see if we look at these ones in here. They're a better example of what the flowers look like when they're hanging in little bunches. And they're really, really delicious, real kind of citrusy orange meets lemon, zesty kind of punch to them. So that's all we're going to look at with that one. We're going to move along and find something else. Here's some here's a bit of a cop out, but here's some lawn daisies. They've got vaguely edible leaf rosettes, but I don't think they're very good. But I have used daisy flowers to make a bruise cream. I know real men shouldn't make their own hand cream, but I thought I'd have a go anyway. Over here we have got some, this is looking vaguely like primrose, but it's going to be a primula species, or it's going to be the non-wild version of primrose, because it's been planted here in the park. But basically the very, very pale leaved wild primrose has got lovely floral tasting leaves. The leaves on these ones are bitter, but the flowers on all of them are really, really good. So you've got 5-petal flower with a mimic of the flower in the middle in a beautiful yellow colour, and then this dimple at the top of each petal. So you have each petal kind of pretending to be 2 petals, but it's not, it's actually just an individual petal. Down here as well, hanging out in there, we're going into the miniature world. We've got, let's see if you can see this, this is going to be some bittercress, and if you know what watercress looks like, you can see it's got very similar leaf shape to it. This is also a member of the cabbage family, and it's got a cressy, crunchy little leaf. I was going to see if I could find a better version of that, but instead I've just eaten it. So we'll keep moving, we'll see what we find. I think we've gone over time-wise from what I promised, but I'll do a couple more minutes and hopefully cover a couple more plants. Some lovely people doing some work on the park. There's all sorts of domestic things that I don't really recognise, or I recognise them but we're not friends. Coming through here, there's lots of lemon balm. We'll go around the corner and identify some of that. Oh, so there's lots of things growing here. Here is some more of the wood avens, the clove root that we looked at earlier. Here is the lords and ladies that I mentioned that you don't want to pick mixed in with your wild garlic, and also you do not want to get confused with your sorrel. The leaves are much bigger, but as you can see the leaf tips round off, they're not pointy and scissor cut. Down here is some cow parsley, which it would take 10 minutes to discuss, and it looks far too similar to hemlock to just look at it briefly, but we'll move along. These are the flowers of the cow parsley, by the way, but also, like I say, very similar to hemlock flowers. One thing we do have that we could look at here quite easily is this is Oxeye daisy. So the way to really learn how to identify Oxeye daisy is to do it backwards. In a month or so these plants will be about 2 foot tall with a massive daisy flower on them, like this size, with a white ray and a yellow middle. And once you can identify that, then you can look at the other parts of the plant and learn the plant in reverse, if you like. The leaves are edible, the flowers are edible. It's got a kind of a bubblegum sort of artificial flavour to it that I think is really nice, really sweet kind of flavour. So right, where are we up to? So we've now done 24 minutes, despite me saying that I was going to only talk for 20 minutes, and I'm not sure whether I did identify all the plants I hoped. I'm going to watch this film back, and I think it's going to be, well, it's me chuntering about plants, isn't it? I hope it's vaguely informative and that it's good enough for me to post on my website, but my standards are pretty low, so I expect this will be coming to a YouTube channel near you soon. Thanks ever so much for watching. Hope to see you soon.